The Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra came out in January of this year, and I have been rocking it since the day of release. Well, maybe a couple of days here and there after the day of release, but let's move to this point. I've had this phone for over 6 months now, and here's what you should know if you're considering getting one for yourself. If you're in a hurry, here's a quick one for you. Get it now. Link is in the description. Go buy it. You won't regret it. It's fantastic. Now for the people who have the attention span of longer than the average TikTok video, let's talk details. I don't even know where to start. This phone is quite the package, and I don't just say that because I have loved the phone in my 6 months of using, but I say this because I have gone from hating Samsung a few years ago to seeing them change and evolve into something nearly perfect for me. If you think about it, Samsung devices were not very well received. They were slow and bloatware packed, ran on TouchWiz for Lord knows what reason, lacked software updates, and don't even get me started on Bixby. The switch to One UI was just another gimmick to me at the time, but now that Samsung has gotten their shit together, I'm glad that I moved over. One UI has matured Samsung by quite a lot, at least on the software side. Software is what makes or breaks a device. I doubt people would buy a phone with software that has no support and got laggy and bugged out all the time. Well, that used to be the case with Samsung, but they changed the game with One UI. The latest One UI 6.1 on the S24 Ultra is a game changer. With the hardware on the phone, One UI has been the smoothest Android experience I have ever felt. I'm talking no lagginess or bugginess, no hiccups in performance, smoother operations throughout the UI, and it all gets complemented by the 120Hz Super AMOLED display. I still, to this day, feel like unlocking my phone only to run around in the UI just to experience that 120Hz display. Customization has been brilliant with the device as well, especially with the new Good Lock updates and modules. If you don't know what Good Lock is and use a Samsung phone, you are missing out. Good Lock basically unlocks true customization potential for your device and lets you change things like your audio sliders, the S Pen pop-up menu, keyboard, system sounds. You can also tweak the sound your phone makes when you pull out or insert the S Pen into the phone. And guess what? This isn't even the tip of what you can do with this app. If any of you used to root your phone back in the day, just think of this as exposed modules, but without having any root. I had a dream of owning a Note device one day ever since I saw the Note 2, but the poor performance and the hefty price was what always kept me aside. Luckily, I understood that these problems are both Samsung and I had to address respectively, and I'm glad that 12 years later, we both did. I made the jump first to the S22 Ultra after my OnePlus 6T, and then to the 24 Ultra, and I can't lie, as impressed as I was with the S22 Ultra after my OnePlus 6T, the S24 Ultra is a far more impressive device, and it is quite the improvement over the 22 Ultra, especially in terms of battery. The battery life on the S24 Ultra has been insane. This is what I wanted in my phone. When I was with OnePlus, I would always just get the taste of this kind of battery that would last me about 7 to 8 hours of screen on time for the first few days, and then it would drop. But Samsung has really secured me here. The battery life on the 24 Ultra has been incredible for me. With internet connectivity 24/7 via Wi-Fi or 5G, automatic brightness, 120Hz refresh rate turned on, I can easily reach well over 7 hours of screen on time with my usage. Although it holds the same battery capacity of 5000 mAh as the last year, and the year before that, and the year before that, and the one before that, it's that software optimization that squeezes the most out of that battery. Of course, it's not limited to just One UI. It also has to do a lot with other things like how I use my phone, the chipset in the phone, which is the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 chip inside of this one, which by the way is a beast on its own. But in my medium to heavy use case, the battery has served me very well. Even if I forget to charge my phone, I love the fact that I can charge it with a 45-watt charger and have enough juice in like 10 to 15 minutes to last me the whole day. Now, I spent quite a bit of time on Reddit reading through what people like and dislike about the S24 Ultras, and honestly, they've had two problems which luckily I haven't had. Problem one, that the screen had a ton of noise in low brightness and in grey or black areas on the phone. People would put a single color on their screen and check for noise, and they would see a lot of noise come through. I luckily have never had that issue, or at least it isn't prominent enough for my eyes. But I am aware of the fact that people have seen that and have had to send their devices back to Samsung. As I understand it, this is not really a problem, but the technology itself. You see, all OLED panels, including the new iPads, have this kind of an issue. but it is more understandable as to why people would notice it more on a device this expensive. Should it exist? Probably not. But does it? Probably. I haven't seen any, but that doesn't mean that the other people haven't. The second problem people had was their camera being absolute dog water. Now, I see people complain about it till day, and there is quite a few arguments here and there where people would either love the camera or absolutely hate it. Although the amount of people who love the camera on this phone far outweigh the people who don't, it is still a valid thing to know that people, for some reason or the other, are not happy with the results of the cameras on this phone. Well, I, for one, am pretty happy with the results that I got with the cameras on this phone. If you're not an avid photographer, this device will make you want to be one. The different lenses for different zoom ranges are great in terms of color production, compression, and detail. It only really becomes a problem when you push that 5x lens into 100x lens. I would say personally that anything between 10 to 30x zoom is pretty usable, but when you cross that line is when it looks more like a gimmick. Sure, it works and is fun to use, and it's a lovely party trick and definitely gets the picture of the moon using AI, but you will not be using that 100x photo to enter into a photography competition anytime soon. The video is just as good, and I have had no issues with the videos coming out of the S24 Ultra either, especially when there is plenty of light. Low light is also good, but that's where I feel Samsung can do a little bit more work in terms of noise reduction and color representation. If you choose manual and know your way around the camera, you can get some pretty good results under any conditions, I would say. But for the majority of you who will literally just turn on the camera, snap a picture and put it back in your pocket, Samsung could work a little bit more towards that night mode. But other than that, it is pretty much a fantastic camera. If I was to give it a rating, I would say it's more on the lines of 9.2 out of 10 rather than a 10 out of 10. But then again, a 10 out of 10 camera does not exist. Another issue from back in the day was the colors looking muted on the 24 Ultra, and they fixed that quite promptly. And then the final and the biggest issue, which is also the biggest feature, is that display. Now, the display is fantastic. It gets very bright, has brilliant colors, and I can't stop looking at it the way the colors look on it. But the issue actually comes when you get to that anti-reflective coating. So the display is covered with an anti-reflective coating that reduces the incoming reflections and makes a huge difference. It's a very well-received feature as well. But then you'll ask, what's the problem then? Well, seems like the coating is easier than normal to wear off for a few people, and it is difficult to restore. There's a great example by Parker on TikTok and even here on YouTube, who used his phone with sunscreen on his hands, and he wiped off the oleophobic coating on his device's screen just by using his phone with sunscreen on his hands. His screen is literally a magnet for fingerprints now, and he has to use a screen protector on the phone. Not a lot of reported cases on this particular issue, but definitely something worth keeping in mind. I would 100% recommend using a screen protector from Amazon or Samsung, but you will lose the anti-reflectiveness of the display. Or you can do what I did and go for a matte screen protector. It has no reflections, looks great in the daylight, colors are still great, and most importantly, feels like paper to write on. That's right. See what I did there? It took me this long to come to the S Pen. I can understand why people usually wouldn't have much of a use for the S Pen, but for me, this is what got me into the Note series and now the S series. I use the S Pen religiously. Not a single day goes by where I haven't written a note by hand or used the S Pen for something or the other. The shape and size of the S Pen feels great. The gestures are a little bit gimmicky, and in all honesty, I don't see myself using many of those on a day-to-day basis. But what I do like is that it serves a lot of function. It doesn't add much to the weight of the phone, which is great and a fun tool to play around with. The fact that it doesn't add much weight to the phone just tells you that it doesn't have much weight to itself. So if you come from an Apple Pencil that has the weight and heft of a mechanical pencil, the S Pen will definitely feel like writing with a feather, a tiny feather. I want to talk about that screen a little bit more before I proceed to the rest. It's huge, and it's not for people who like small compact designs. It's a big phone, and non-apologetically so. Samsung has put their best panel in this device that makes it a medium machine. The colors look absolutely fantastic no matter where you watch your content. YouTube, Netflix, gaming, you'll have a lovely experience. Especially when you expand your view to go full screen is where you realize how immersive this screen can be. That front camera punch hole almost disappears into your content, rendering it invisible to your peripheral vision. The speakers go really well with the entire experience as well. Of course, the bottom firing speaker is easy to cover, but if you use a case on your phone, you can't muffle it nearly as much as you would without a case. The earpiece also doubles as a great second speaker, making the experience so much better. The sound quality is great. It doesn't leave much detail behind to give you a great experience when it comes to the sound. I have seen a lot of videos where people usually end up hating on the audio that comes out of the phone, and genuinely speaking, I have no clue what they're talking about. In my experience, it's been nothing short of fantastic. Of course, when I made my switch to the S24 Ultra, I made a full switch to the ecosystem. I'm not super reliant on the ecosystem, but when I do move over, I move over. So I let go of my Huawei watch and I let go of my rinky-dink headphones from China and hopped onto the Buds 2 Pro and the Watch 6 Classic. Yes, I did get the standard Watch 6 with the S24 Ultra, but I like the Classic more for the old school childhood nostalgia purposes. Making the switch was not only easy, but so worth it. These things pair up seamlessly and work brilliantly. I won't go into much detail about any of the accessories in this video, but just know that these two are probably the best accessories to pair up with your 24 Ultra, since these are tried and tested. Sure, the Watch Series 7 is about to come out soon, but I'm not even sure if I like how it looks, especially compared to the 6 Classic. I've seen people complain about the lack of G2 support, and yes, high-end devices have that these days, but there's a solid reason as to why it isn't here on the S24 Ultra. If I was to give you an option between having a magnetic wireless charger on the back or having an S Pen support, which one would you choose? If you chose the S Pen, then you did what Samsung probably did. G2's magnetic structure interferes with the S Pen's mechanism. The S Pen would have been rendered useless with the G2 on most of that screen. But if you choose the G2 instead of the S Pen, there are two things you can do. You can go for a different device, or you can go for a case with magnets on it. It will serve pretty much the same purpose as having G2, and your S Pen will pretty much be just as useless or useful to you as it was. I am not one to fuss about G2, and I don't really use wireless charging all the time either. I like to have it on my bedside, but I usually end up preferring the wired fast charging instead. Another thing I didn't think I would want to use, but ended up using partially, is that AOD. The always-on display looks gorgeous. And with the battery life on the device, I'm confident on having it on tap. Sure, I can have it on to show constantly as well, but I just don't think that is right. I don't know, never been a fan of having my phone screen on 24/7. I like to have it on tap for quick glances, and with good luck, I can customize it in so many different ways. It's unreal. Make it fun, add animations, give it effects, do what you want with it, and it doesn't let you down. I would have liked for it to have that depth feature like iOS does, but unfortunately it doesn't. Neither on AOD nor the lock screen. Speaking of iOS, a lot on this phone is currently being compared to the iOS 18, and with a lot of the features, Samsung did do them first, but then there were a few things that iOS improved on, had originals off, and some they just didn't bother copying. I could go a long way talking about One UI versus iOS 18, but I'm sure there are other better people out there who can give you a far better, deeper insight on that. I will link a couple of videos down below for you, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm just proud that I haven't once spoken about AI till now. AI was the center point of the S24 Ultra's launch. Everything was AI. Summarize your web pages with AI, edit your pictures with AI, expand your photos with AI, generate covers for your notes with AI, AI circle to search, AI this, AI that, and look, it's great. It has all of that and it just works. But how much of it will you actually use on a daily basis? I can see how summarizing web pages can be useful and important to a lot of people. But that is restricted to Samsung's browser, while I use Brave. Brave gang, I want to see you guys in the comments. I've sometimes felt the need for this feature, and yes, I will absolutely go to the Samsung browser, but the time isn't far when the summarize feature is available for pretty much every third-party browser. Or at least I think so. Another feature I have never used is the chat assist feature that changes the tone that you've written something in. Look, if I wanted something written in a certain way, I would have written it in a certain way. Or I would have asked ChatGPT to write me something that sounds like I wear a $5,000 suit on a day-to-day basis. But I don't need chat assist for it realistically. AI features are here and there, and they're fun. I toyed with them for a few days, and then I forgot about a good few of them, and then went back to the old ways of using my phone. I don't want to have myself adapt to the new features. I just want the new features to adapt to me. I see myself using less than half the AI features on the device. The best one is Circle to Search. It's quick, snappy, and responsive, and it just works. The second one I use is AI Generative Fill, which can be a bit of a hit and miss, but it is some good fun nonetheless. And finally, I did use the AI feature to make some covers for my notes, and while that isn't useful, I can say for a fact that it is more intelligent than anything or anyone on this whole planet. It can recognize my hideous handwriting and generate covers from that. That's where I fear AI is here to take over this planet. Well, maybe not just yet, because the AI we talk about here is advanced intelligence and not artificial intelligence. Linus actually made a pretty solid video about it too. Must check it out. Basically, the AI in these devices are trained on a lot of data which was fed to them. It understands that and answers well within that huge pool of data that it was fed. It can't make up knowledge it didn't know before. Whereas an actual AI would end up connecting the dots, drawing conclusions, solving real issues, or at least I think so. But this in no way is AI or artificial intelligence on your phone. It's always going to be called advanced intelligence or Apple intelligence or asparagus intellect or whatever different companies may call it for good reason. And it's because it isn't artificial intelligence. With all that being said, I know that the S24 Ultra is not a perfect device for everyone. The screen size isn't for everybody. The issues with the screen, although not widespread, but can be a concern for people who are spending that kind of dough. The price in itself is quite the concern. Maybe One UI isn't good enough for you. Maybe it's just a complicated machine, or perhaps you just don't want to commit to an ecosystem change. But what I can say from my experience is that if you can manage to get your hands on this today, and you're not sure if it's worth the money, I'll tell you now, it isn't. If anything, the standard 24 or the 24 Plus is a much better bang for the buck. But the experience of using the Ultra, the cameras, the performance, the feel of the physical device itself, not to mention the reliability of the quick and continuous software updates for the next 7 years is quite the reason to consider it. And if you were already considering it, I suspect money isn't really a concern. Well, I suppose that is all I have to say about the S24 Ultra. And let me know what you think about the phone. Mention all your thoughts in the comments down below, and I shall see you guys in the next one. Later.